Beastmasters Club, experiencing the world's finest whiskey, one bottle at a time.
Welcome to Beastmasters Club podcast.
Welcome back, y'all. We know it's been a while, but we're back.
One of your hosts, Steve, here with my lovely wife.
Hello.
And my lovely work wife, Ben.
Howdy.
I don't feel jealous at all about that.
We can
actually.
cut that out.
No, it's okay. You get a reprieve. You know,
It's true.
You're lucky. Like when you don't want to deal with him, he's with me.
That's true.
It's
you,
like
help shoulder
You can't
the
go
burden.
wrong. Well, we're back here, and we're super excited to announce our latest private barrel pick.
Yeah, we got
Yeah.
a lot going on. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah. So this latest barrel is from Elijah Craig, made by the folks at Heaven Hill. They're Elijah Craig brand, and it is a 94 proof 9-year bourbon.
The Midnight Rider.
The Midnight Rider, yeah, dubbed by the Beastmasters Club the Midnight Rider. Little Greg Allman tribute. If you get your bottle, you see a sweet little sticker on the back that
Spill a sip for GA.
yeah, pour out a little for the almonds.
I have to say, I'm looking at the sticker right now, and if you haven't gotten yours yet, I will say that it is actually the most awesome thing I've ever seen on a whiskey, at least on a whiskey bottle, that's for sure.
Ben, you want to update the radio land on all the other stuff we have going on?
Yeah, it's a busy time
While I pop this
here
bottle
at
open.
Beastmasters Club. We had a really busy spring planning events and picking barrels, so we got a whole bunch of stuff lined up coming through. We have a few other barrel releases coming, so next week we should be debuting our Russell's Reserve Wild Turkey barrel that's on the way. Yeah, that one's
that
That got a cheer.
That one's great, and that's coming in. Then right following on the heels of that, we should have our Four Roses single barrel coming through.
Also a cheer for that one.
Yeah, woohoo!
That's exciting.
So we got a lot of barrels coming, and on the event side, we have a few things in the works. Next week, I guess we're recording this on June 8th. So next week on June 14th, we have a little face-off event where Steve and I are going to be in a showdown, putting 2 of our barrel picks up against 2 barrel picks from the boys at Single Cask Nation.
That's right.
That's-
Nancy's going to be out of town. We're going to have to try our best.
It's all right.
Yeah, we won't have Dana there for moral support.
I guess
so-
whoever,
Well,
I guess,
you kicked Josh's ass last time.
right. So I was going to say
So-
whoever wins maybe can take me on next time.
Oh, interesting. Okay, you got
True.
winners like
Yeah.
the championship.
Well, I'm already a champion.
You are. Yeah. So maybe that was like the semis. This is like the finals.
Dana's the first person to hold a belt in the Beastmasters Challenge series.
Well, wasn't Jake first?
You guys had a face-off, which was
Right.
a little different,
Yeah, that's
I
true.
would say.
Sorry, Jake.
But I'll give it to Dana and say that she's our first champion.
Can you guys make like championship belts?
Like WWE belts?
Yeah,
WWF
obviously.
belts?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes, I mean, why wouldn't we?
Okay, great.
I
Let me
think
know when I
you'll-
can
you'll-
expect
A
mine.
big beast like chugging 2 bottles of whiskey at the same time.
You have to steal your belt from Conor McGregor.
I'm sure I can take him.
I kind of have a feeling they're going to bring their Jubilee bottle because, they do a special bottle for Jubilee every
Right.
year. So if they bring that and we beat it, that's going to really suck for them.
No bueno. And so then the night after next Wednesday's battle is the Whiskey Jubilee.
Jubilee.
Josh Hatton and Single Cask Nation's big festival, whiskey
And we'll
festival.
be there.
The New York edition. And yes, we will be there. The
So
Beastmasters.
fucking official. We're going to have a table with like a sign behind it and booze.
It's crazy.
With a sign,
yeah, man. We got a
You
banner
guys.
and
Yeah,
everything.
we got a sweet banner. It's gorgeous.
It's
Come
sweet.
see it.
which I'm going to miss also.
Oh, man. Yeah, Dan's
right.
going to be out of town. So
It's all right.
Yeah.
I'll
Some
be
of us are
kicking it at the
world
Dave and
travelers.
Buster's in Woburn, Mass.
Professor
don't
Rickhouse
worry.
is going to have to be our booth girl,
He is.
which is apt, totally apropos for Jubilee.
He looks sexy in a fedora, so
Yeah, it's like a.
don't
yeah.
worry.
All right, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys. The Elijah Craig Single Barrel Beastmasters
exciting.
Edition 9-year bourbon. All right. Oh, yeah.
That'll do.
Boom. That is delicious.
Yeah.
Definitely has that nice signature Elijah Craig sweetness. That kind of honey forward flavor.
Yeah. What a badass. You ever see Rush, that movie? He was
Hell
in?
yeah. I
Oh,
love that.
Best.
That's when he was at the height of his badassdom.
He had like 3 lines in that movie, and I still remember it like 15 years later.
He just did a lot
crushed
of
it.
walking around looking menacing.
Yeah. A lot of, What do you think, babe?
Well, I think
Did
you
you
guys
try it
did.
yet?
Yeah, of course I tried it. I didn't wait for you. I think you guys did great. I think the nose and the taste are both really sweet, really but like, it's still got that kind of good burn. It's a good balance, really, really good balance.
I'm nosing it. I'm very happy with it so far.
I like the like nice
got
sweet
balls.
honey chocolate vanilla kind of. It's definitely in that classic Elijah Craig small batch 12-year profile, kind of on that flavor profile. But it's
I get a lot of like caramel apple kind of. I mean,
yeah.
it's really
that's a good description.
that's pretty special.
It's nice. And for $36,
No, that's like a joke.
forget it. Yeah, you're never gonna. Yeah,
For $36 a pop, you will not find
No.
you will not find a better bourbon under $40. Believe
Yeah.
us. Believe us. Get
I
it.
actually didn't realize it was $36. That's pretty amazing. Can I have
Right?
a case, please?
it's sitting right over there.
You've got 2.
Try not to drink them all tonight.
But yeah, for all the people from the club who have made orders just in the past couple of days that the barrel has been released since we sent out the email, thanks so much.
Yeah.
We see it's
Appreciate
flying
your
off the
support.
shelf. So if you're listening to this and you're interested, jump on beastmastersclub.com and get your hands on one now because they won't be around forever. And once these are gone, they're gone.
It is like half gone, and we're just getting to sip it now. It's only been a day.
Yeah, it flew off. It's flying off the shelves. People are buying 3, 6, 12 of these a piece. So
Professor Rickhouse went home with 12. Lucky man.
yes, smart man, cornering the market. And we wouldn't even hate you if you just put this on your bar and like made someone in Manhattan with it. I think it's not
Speak
that's
for
not
yourself.
that's not its purpose, but at this price, we feel like this is a nice like everyday
Why
server,
not?
everyday
That's
sipper.
you can make a special Manhattan. I mean, there's
Absolutely.
nothing wrong with that. I mean, I wouldn't make it with like my finest, bourbon. But, this is pretty fine bourbon for a really good price. I would totally make a Manhattan out of it.
There you go. I know your husband doesn't really agree with my attitude toward this possible cocktailing with our bourbons, but I think that it could be okay.
I
Just
think
when
we
I pick something, when we pick something, we sit there and we sample all of them, and we, go through all the rigmarole of, wheeling the barrel down the hill and tapping the bung and bottling it. No, we don't do any of that shit. But like, we picked it, and thus I feel like it's a sipper.
Well, you know what I say about how we drink whiskey. I said this the other day. The only right way to drink whiskey is exactly how you like it. And if you like it in a Manhattan, for fuck's sake, drink it in a Manhattan.
I think you're right, except you were talking to me. So the only right way to drink whiskey is how I like it. Which is neat.
I do like a Manhattan once in a while, and I'm not going to shun anybody for doing it. I know how you feel. We know how you feel, Mr. Zeller.
I make a mean Manhattan, but I ain't putting this in it.
We've
so
already
if
been
that's
really
what
mean
you're-
to him today, so I feel
It's
like we
true.
need
I
to-
dropped one of these microphones on my head, right on my face, setting up
I
in
know.
my arduous
All right,
efforts
we'll-
to set
Still
up this
let this-
fucking
podcast.
whining about
We'll
it.
let this
Still
one.
whining
We'll
about
let
it.
this one
You
slide
see out
then.
there what kind of sympathy I get from my wife and best friend. Sweet. All
We're
coming up,
horrible
Steve.
people.
Jesus.
We're horrible people. All right. Well,
Tough crowd.
So go out, go to the website, get yourself a bottle of this Elijah Craig. We've got some more awesome barrel picks coming. We've got the Wild Turkey Russell's Reserve coming up. We've got a single barrel of Four Roses coming up. So thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting. Grab yourself a bottle on our site, and yeah, we'll see you soon, hopefully.
Yeah, and thanks to Bernie and everybody at Heaven Hill. This is good stuff. I'm very happy.
All right. Cheers.
Enjoy our talk with Bernie. Here you go.
The Beastmasters Club is now in session.
Hello, everybody. This is Beastmasters Club podcast. We're here with Bernie Lubbers from Heaven Hill. How you doing, Bernie?
Hello. Good to finally be here.
We've been really looking forward to this, man. I'm happy to have you.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me in.
All right. Of course.
Bernie's sort of like the professor of bottled and bond, so we put together a little bottled and bond tasting here, and we're looking
I
forward to it.
appreciate the tailoring of the tasting. I like that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think we're going to go through a bunch of different whiskeys, and Bernie's going to guide us through sort of what makes these things unique, what makes them similar, and what Bottled and Bond is all about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
So what have you been up to lately, Bernie? What's the word? What's the latest?
Hey, this is my 6th out of 7th week on the road.
Oh, boy.
So I have been all over. Been to Texas twice, Florida twice. I've been to Washington, D.C. for the first Whiskey Fest of the year. And then now I'm here.
Yeah.
And next week's the first bourbon festival they're going to have in New Orleans.
Oh,
Can't believe it's the first one, but yeah.
Cool.
Oh.
Well, they do, what is it, Craft of the Cocktail down
They
there?
do Tail of the
Tail
Cocktails,
of
Tales of the
yeah.
Cocktail, but that's all spirits, all everything. This was the
Right.
first, and there's only one other bourbon festival that I know, and that's the International Bourbon Festival in Bardstown, Kentucky, in
Oh, so it's
September.
just bourbon, not
just
even whiskey.
bourbon,
Okay,
no
cool.
whiskeys,
Nice.
no other whiskeys but bourbon.
Sweet. Yeah. Well, we just came off most of a week in Kentucky, picking barrels. And that was super fun.
Yeah.
And
Work.
Oh, well, it was. We're not used to 10 a.m. barrel sampling.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an eye opener.
It's a long day. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. And then
Sorry.
if you're gonna, pig out on barbecue for lunch and then do another whiskey tour in the afternoon and then go out to the bars,
Yeah. Starting to sample 6, 7, 8 barrel samples at 10 a.m. You're going deep. That's a day.
You're going deep. That's right.
Yeah.
Glad you survived.
Yeah.
We're back, and hopefully we'll be bringing those barrels to the club.
Let's dive into some bottled and bond. So
Yeah, tell
Absolutely.
us
What are
what
we drinking here?
we've got here.
Well, we've got a nice selection here of, when at Heaven Hill, we make more bottle and bonds than anybody. So it's really a great tasting to do. And we have 3 different recipes of bourbon of whiskey we're going to be tasting, of American whiskey. One of our mission statements at Heaven Hill is to make every style of American whiskey. And this kind of drives that point home. Because bourbon is really, that's leading everybody wants bourbon. Rye whiskey came out of nowhere and was really in now people's crosshairs. But we've made wheat whiskeys. We've made with our Bernheim wheat whiskey. We make corn whiskey with our Georgia Moon and Mellow Corn. And so there's other styles of American whiskey. So if those do catch popularity, we won't be behind the 8 ball. We're already making it, so
Plenty
we
of
might have to
stock.
ramp up production a little bit, but we're there. But it's not why we did it. I mean, it is just a mission statement of the family and the company. We are a family-owned company, so we don't have to answer to Wall Street and stockholders. So we can do what we want to do, and they do. So this kind of really proves it. So we've got Mellow Corn, corn whiskey, the only bottle and bond straight corn whiskey in the world. We've got Evan Williams Bottle and Bond, which is now the #1 selling bottle and bond in the world.
wow.
And it's only been around for 4 years. So that's really crazy.
pretty
And then we've got Rittenhouse Rye. I'd say that it's not an understatement to say that Rittenhouse Rye is the most sought after rye whiskey in the world.
We are never without one of the giant 1.5-liter bottles.
I'm telling you.
Yep.
And so Rittenhouse, I've been in Poland and Slovakia and Czech Republic and at the Experimental Cocktail Club in Paris and London, and Rittenhouse Rye is the preferred rye in most all those places. And then we have the oldest age-stated bottle and bond on the planet that's regularly available, and that's Henry McKenna, a 10-year. Of course, looks like you got the oldest that I've ever seen in a long time. And this is was our release of Parker's last year, which is a 24-year-old.
Yeah, we had to break out something special for you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it's awful
Might as well
nice.
dip into that.
We did
Right.
a hot or hype. We did a podcast of all the bottles that came out, that were kind of sought after and hard to find. And we said, is it worth the hunt? Is it worth the price? A couple of them did not make the cut, but this one was definitely a treat.
We'll do a little
So-
toast to Parker then, since Parker just passed away a couple months ago. We'll do that, and then because he had his fingerprints all over that for sure. And then we've got the only bottle and bond straight grape brandy in the world that's just been out less than a year. So
So even though it's not a bourbon, it's not technically a whiskey, it can still be bottled and bond.
and that's one of the first things we'll learn about bottle and bond.
Cool.
Yeah, it's any domestic distilled spirit.
All right, nice.
Are there bottled and bond gins or vodkas or anything?
We're
like that?
going to learn all about that. And this is all So what I do is
Patience.
Well, it's really. These are great questions. But you've seen I've got these laws out here. Mm-hmm. We are regulated by the Tax and Trade Bureau, the TTB, the federal government. And I always bring with me all over the world. Anytime there's a question, I have the laws with me. So I carry these with me wherever I go. And also a lot of people, I've had people say, well, bottle and bond's a marketing thing. It doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Well, here's the laws. It does mean something. I've had even distillers tell me, Bottle and Bond is from a bygone era where the treasury agents used to live on the distilleries. And that hasn't happened in decades. Why are you talking about it? It's not even, it's nothing right now. And I show them the law, and I go, if it's nothing, why is it in the laws?
Right.
You know, so I mean, this is my thing. You know, I'm not a distiller, I'm not a family member, but this is kind of my thing. So you know, I'm very proud of it, and proud of the fact that we carry more Bottle and Bonds than anybody. If you don't make a Bottle and Bond, it's not a big thing for you.
Right.
But we do, so it's a big thing for us.
Bernie just put on some tortoiseshell spectacles, and he's got like a mimeograph, tiny font.
Boy, there's a word. Mimeograph. For those millennials,
Yeah.
mimeograph is a machine that you hand cranked. Check out Fast Times at Ridgemont High to see what mimeograph
I used to love the
is.
smell of those sheets when they came off the
That's
fluid.
what they did their Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Remember that?
Yeah, it
Pick 'em
smelled,
up.
smelled like a Sharpie marker.
So I have a copy, and if people, these are fascinating. It's on the TTB website. Really hard to find, but I've got all these on my website on whiskeyprof.com, and so I've got a copy of all this on here.
Good
But it's really
contextual
cool
plug
just to
there.
read the laws. It doesn't take long, and
Right.
so if you just read the laws, and so when I teach people about American whiskey in general, and then about Bottle and Bond, I say that these words on labels are like Boy Scouts earning badges or military men and women earning medals. Not everybody in your troop knows how to tie knots and build a fire, things like that. If you demonstrate that skill, you set yourself apart from those people in your troop, and you get a badge to show that you can do that. If you're an expert marksman in the military, not everybody on base can do what you do, and you proudly wear that medal with pride. It shows that you have a skill that they don't. So when you look at these words on labels, it's the same thing. These are the labels are our chests, and these words are the badges and medals that we wear with pride on our chests. Right?
Well, that's what I like about Bottle and Bond. We've been trying to kind of educate people about this. Like, there are words on bottles that mean things like straight and single and things like that. And then there's words that don't, like small batch and sour mash and things that, you know, may have meant things to individual people, but they're not
Right.
something that the industry recognizes as a whole. So
Correct. There are recognized and accepted definitions for all those words. Single barrels, one of them. Small batches, another. Sour mash. Sour mash is hard to dispute because it's been used for a couple hundred years now. But you're right. There's nothing legal about that. So the first word, I'm gonna have you all's help here too. So you know, some of it too. So the first one we're gonna go backwards. So there's those words: Kentucky straight bourbon and whiskey. Okay. So if you read that whiskey, just a broad category, it's at the top there of whiskey. That would be great.
So this is a subpart C standards of identity for distilled spirits, class 2 whiskey, minus the E. Whiskey is an alcoholic distillate from a fermented mash of grain produced at less than 100 proof, 180. This is really small. 190 proof, in such manner that the distillate possesses the taste, aroma, and characteristics generally attributed to whiskey stored in oak containers, except that corn whiskey need not be so stored.
Isn't
and
that
bottled
interesting?
at not less than 80 proof, and also includes mixtures of such distillates for which no specific standards of identity are prescribed. I think I lost it at the end there.
I think you're okay though. But you know what
Does that mean? Mixtures of such distillates
You can only put other
for
whiskeys
which
with it.
no specific standards of identity
for that
are
part.
prescribed.
So that means part of it you read says that it has to possess the characteristics generally attributed to whiskey, which is the aroma, the appearance, and the taste. And also, you just really described vodka, except for the storing in oak part.
Sure.
Made from grains distilled to 190 proof. Well, if I do that, how is it going to look, smell, and taste like whiskey? So that's what it means. It means you can add colors and flavors and sugars and different things that are safe, but to achieve that. So you can add caramel coloring to just whiskey.
But not straight.
Well, we're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
Uh-huh. So this is the broad category. So we're different than vodka because we have to be aged in oak. But then you just start being whiskey. You also have to look, smell, and taste like whiskey, which you can add things to. And you're thinking what whiskeys are out there that you can add things to. What
I
comes to your mind?
Smell like whiskey.
Yeah.
So-
What comes to your mind? What brands or kinds of whiskeys
in terms of
that you can
adding-
add caramel colors or flavors or sugars to?
well, most Scotch, right?
Has the caramel,
has
and they have their own laws, which have those. We're not going to read
you
those,
got
but those laws too.
hopped whiskeys and cinnamon whiskeys and all kinds of awful
But there's a
stuff out
huge
there.
category in the United States, and it's blended whiskey. So
Yeah,
like your Seagram 7, your Kessler, things like that. We have one called Kentucky. Everybody makes one called. We have one called Kentucky Deluxe,
which has some
Philadelphia is
grain
another one
neutral
for us.
spirits and stuff in there.
And so it's basically Everclear. So it's either 100% corn distilled to 190, or it's grains distilled to 190. That's basically vodka.
Right.
And then you can add water to it to get down. You can't bottle it less than 80 proof. That's in the law too.
Right.
And then, but you can add caramel color because it's got to look like it. Does have to spend time in oak, but it doesn't say what kind of oak.
Right.
So that's not really going to add a whole lot, depending on what you add to. So it's going to need a little help. So we add a little caramel color to it. It's basically whiskey flavored vodka. Okay. And it's and so there's a lot of brands that people drink. There's nothing wrong with them. It's still whiskey. You still got to do something. It costs a little bit more than just vodka and all that, but it's category.
Right.
So that's the basic category we have there. So the next one you're going to read there, Ben, is corn whiskey. So remember, corn whiskey doesn't have to be aged in oak.
Right.
Right. So we're learning right there. Whiskey. We all think that all whiskey has to be aged in barrels or oaks, but no, corn whiskey does not have to. This is domestic law. This is not an international law.
Right.
We do ours is Georgia Moon. We have an unaged corn whiskey called Georgia Moon, and it's not a moonshine. It's not from neutral grain spirits. It's corn whiskey. So let's read the definition of corn whiskey and see how that's different than just whiskey.
Here we go. Corn whiskey is whiskey produced at not exceeding 160 proof from a fermented mash.
So a lower proof, not 190, it's 160.
Not exceeding 160 proof from a fermented mash of not less than 80% corn grain. And if stored in oak containers, stored at not more than 125 proof, in used or uncharred new oak containers, and not subjected in any manner to treatment with charred wood. And also includes mixtures of such whiskey.
So I can only add other corn whiskeys to it.
Right.
Okay. I have to put it.
And
I have to use. I
non-charred
can't.
oak.
Not just any grain, as whiskey is. It has to be at least 80% corn.
To be called corn whiskey.
Be corn whiskey.
Right.
Okay. And then I have to put it into not just a container, an oak container. It has to be in a uncharred, brand new, or a used. Can't be used charred.
So you can toast, but you can't char.
No, you can use a used charred barrel.
Oh, I see.
Not a new
But
charred
a new
barrel.
charred barrel. And we use a once used Evan Williams barrel for our mellow corn.
You know what I was thinking, like when I started doing a little research on bottled and bond a few weeks ago when I knew we were going to have you in. These things are really cool because these laws are some of the few things I feel like that we have in the United States that are a lot like some of the like domain control laws in Europe that are very specific about products and how they're
Like
manufactured.
cognacs and armagnacs.
And wines and different beers, and they're
why I
much
love
more.
teaching it.
Yeah, they're much more specified on what those things are and why they can be called what they are, and certified from specific places with specific sort of terroir and all their little things. Yeah, I said terroir. Sorry, but
Wow, it's on the table.
but that's what I think is cool about this is sort of a uniquely American thing, and we don't do that for too much in this country. But for these whiskeys and the whole Bottled and Bond Act, which I think it's like the 120th anniversary of this
March
year?
3rd was 120 years. So this past March 3rd, we had a big celebration we're out back home in Louisville, and I hope that everybody starts celebrating March 3rd. It would be a pre like an St. Patty's thing up here, but March 3rd.
Yeah, it's
next
Bottled and
year.
Bond Day.
Yeah,
It's
Bottled
just-
and Bond Act. If it wasn't for the Bottled and Bond Act, we'd all be drinking Seagram 7 a day.
It's like one of some of these things that are uniquely American, like jazz, like bourbon. It's like that's an American thing, and we have some laws around it, which
and
is
that's why I
kinda
love
cool.
teaching. So
Did you
corn
add-
whiskey
did you add-
we're
did you add
learning.
a little 120 to your tat there.
Right, that's 100 proof.
Yeah.
I got a bottle and bond tattoo. So corn whiskey. Some people say, "Well, you're using a used barrel here to save money." No, that's the law.
Right.
And the science that happens inside the barrel is if we age this recipe, and our recipe for mellow corn is 80% corn, 8% rye, and 12% malted barley. We don't use less than 12% malted barley in anything that we make because for the enzymes to get the full conversion of starches to sugars.
Gotta have that
8% is really the lowest minimum to get a conversion. Well, we like to use a little bit more,
Without
as
adding
most people do.
enzymes artificially, right?
So we don't have to add. You can add them, but our distillers are not going to allow that to happen, nor would any other major like Jimmy and Eddie and everybody, Harlan, everybody else. No one uses that. So so that's our recipe. So we meet the standards for that. We age it in a used barrel. If we took that recipe and aged it in a brand new charred oak container, we'd have bourbon.
You get bourbon, yeah.
And we already have bourbon. We want to have something. We want to make every style of American whiskey, and corn whiskey is that. So this meets the all the requirements. We use when you age it in a used barrel, the corn the flavor remains. If you age it in a brand new charred barrel, the corn flavor becomes neutral, and only the sweetness remains, and you have bourbon or rye or wheat whiskey or that. But if you age it in a used charred barrel or a brand new uncharred, you will still have the flavor of corn. And that's why we use that. Okay? And and then we're going to now learn the bourbon
Get
law.
into
So
bourbon.
I'm going to hand that over to Steve there.
Read us
and
the
reread
bourbon,
the next
sir.
one. Now, here's right off the bat, we're
Do
going
you
to learn
feel a
something
little bit
real
like you're in court and someone's handing you a document
Right.
saying like,
to enter this
"Excuse me,
into
sir,
evidence.
Please read the highlighted paragraph."
Right. So when we read the bourbon law, though, we're going to find out that bourbon shares a definition with many whiskeys. And that's something eye-opening to me when I first read it, and hopefully it's eye-opening to everyone else here.
I did not have relations with that woman.
That whiskey.
No relations.
All right. Bourbon whiskey, rye whiskey, wheat whiskey, malt whiskey, or rye malt whiskey is whiskey produced at not exceeding 100 and this is real small.
60.
160 proof from a fermented mash of not less than 51% corn, rye, wheat, malted barley, or malted rye grain, respectively, and stored at not more than 125 proof in charred new oak containers, and also includes mixtures of such whiskeys of the same type.
So,
All right.
corn whiskey has the same strict restrictions as bourbon whiskeys. It's got to be a certain percentage of grains, and different than corn whiskey, bourbon has to be 51% corn. So they chose bourbon because it's also corn-based, but we have a corn whiskey, so it comes here. And then rye whiskey has to be at least 51% rye. Wheat whiskey has to be at least 51% wheat, or Stewie Griffin would say wheat. Wheat whiskey. And then you have your malt whiskey. It has to be at least 51% malt. Remember, Parker's last year was a malt whiskey two times ago. So that has to be at least 51%. And then rye malt whiskey, which I've seen a couple craft distillers bring back, has to be at least 51%.
We were talking about one of those, a rye malt, a single malt rye.
Yeah, somebody was describing something as a single malt rye, and I didn't
Which
understand
means they
what
use
that
100% rye malt.
Rye malt.
was. So you can malt rye.
Yes, you can malt any grain.
That I didn't.
But you get more of the enzymes from malting barley, and so we don't have to malt. See, when you malt something, the flavor goes away from that. It's going to the plant.
Right. Oh, I
So-
remember what it was. It's that old Potrero.
Yeah.
That's what
So
it
we
good call.
choose not to malt any other grains because barley has the most enzymes enabled to. So we only have to malt that one. And barley doesn't have a ton of flavor. It has sweetness, but doesn't have a ton of flavor. So you don't want to take the flavor away from the rye. You don't want to take the flavor away from
A lot of
from the
Scotsmen
corn.
would probably disagree with that, but
they're angry. They're still.
Yeah, well, they just have one grain to talk about, and they're using our barrels, so they can, whatever. And there's so many rules, but anyway, to how to drink it. So anyway, so we have bourbon, rye, and all that. So they share a definition, but it's no more than 160, and we bring everything off the still at around 140. It's industry standard today. And then we put it in the barrel at no more than 125 in a brand new charred oak container for bourbon, rye, wheat, malt, etc. And then so that's what sets that badge. So this has bourbon whiskey there. Then hand me these. I will read what straight is. Straight is that's also part 3.
see, no additives, 4 years, new oak.
No.
There we go.
Whiskeys conforming to the standards prescribed in paragraphs above. So all the whiskeys we've just defined of this section, which have been stored in the type of oak containers prescribed, so either used for corn
Oh, okay, right.
or brand new here, for bourbon and that, for a period of 2 years or more, shall further be designated as straight. Okay.
2 years.
Is that true for bourbon
Two
now?
years.
I
Yes.
thought straight bourbon had to be older. Straight rye could be 2, but straight
See,
bourbon
this is
older.
why I carry the
This is
laws.
what the
with me.
law actually states. So yeah, I mean, like most things, there are a lot of weird understandings.
What
and myths.
you are referring to is the age statements, okay? And the age statement law here, because this always comes up, is that if it is whether it's mixed, which is 4 years old or more, statements of age and percentages are optional.
Oh, so it has to be 4 years to be age stated.
So that's a labeling law, not a
see.
law of bourbon.
Right.
Bourbon can be 1 minute old as long as it stays in that brand new charred oak container for 1 minute. Jimmy Russell's rule, the 15-15 rule. Did he tell you that one when you were down there?
No.
It's a great rule. He said because we just say oak
Oh, he
containers.
did mention that. It could be in the barrel for 15 minutes.
15 minutes or 15 feet.
Right.
If you put it in a charred oak bucket, don't have to be a barrel, right? So if you put it in a charred oak bucket and carry it 15 feet or keep it there 15 minutes, you got bourbon. Won't be very good, but you got bourbon. Okay?
Right.
So the labeling law state that if it's under 4 years old, you must put an age statement on it. And if it's over 4 years, it's optional.
I see.
But if you do put an age statement on it, every drop must be that old.
At least that old.
And that's a labeling law, not a bourbon law or a corn whiskey law.
And so every drop must be at least that old, right?
If you put an age statement
Yeah.
on it.
Um,
So
Cool.
we now know what straight is. And straight's a very important word to know now. Straight also means nothing but pure water is added to it as well. It's deeper.
No other
deeper in the
additives,
thing.
right.
So just pure water and at least 2 years old. So many new little craft distilleries don't have the wherewithal in terms of financial. They have to get it out on the market, right? And so you're finding a lot of whiskeys that don't have the word straight on it. It's very important. So, these are sometimes $50 to $100 bottles of whiskey
Yep.
that are, 6 months to 15 months old.
Yep.
Now, there could be a reason. First of all, their stuff's not paid for. So they got their houses mortgaged. And it shows you how expensive this stuff is to make. So I think it makes us larger producers look really great because we have the same costs, but we just have a lot more bottles to spread it over. And it shows that our advantage is to charge less. They have to charge more. So we have a lot more age. But that word straight, and I want to know answers. If it doesn't say the word straight on it, I want to know why is this $50?
Right.
Okay. Well, we're only making so many bottles. Okay. We're making it this way. I will choose to support you. Or I will choose not to support you. Are you just making neutral grain spirits adding color to it? No. I'm not going to spend $50 for that. But there might be a reason that I support you, even if I know this is only 6 months old, and I know I'm paying away. I can get a 5-year-old Evan Williams Black Label for 5 years old, 86 proof. You kidding me? It's $12,
Right.
And I'm going to pay $75 for yours. Well, there has to be reasons, and I think this knowing these laws really helps me as a consumer when I go into those to Astor or wherever, and I'm looking at all these things that have great looking bottles that are 16 months old that cost $100. Well, if I know how to read these words, then
you have a place, you have a basis to judge from and to start from.
We have
We agree.
this conversation a lot. I mean, it's impossible for the craft distillers to compete with, at scale operations that have been storing stock for some years. So usually, and I think this has been reflected in our choice of barrels for the club, we like to start with the staples, the stuff that's the best value in terms of taste. And then if you're curious, if you're starting to broaden your collection a little bit and you want to get into the stories, the farm to table stuff, a little bit of the craft things, then you can kind of introduce that as well. But I think it's clearly tough to compete and on Scotch as well as bourbon with, something that's got some age behind it and has made it a big scale and can afford to pay this stuff.
And I think it's great that the smaller producers are out there starting these craft operations and expanding the market and giving people these alternatives and new things to try and trying their hand at doing this stuff. And we want to support that where it's warranted, and I think that as they grow, they're only going to be able to start stacking up and storing more and putting some more age on their product. And hopefully, at least our hope has always been that will maybe separate a bit of like the wheat from the chaff.
Of
like
course,
we're
it always
saying.
does.
So the good producers.
We started out as a craft distillery. We had a 2-year-old bourbon called Bourbon Falls because we didn't, it's a big investment. In 1935, our owners invested $30,000, and they wanted to see some of that money back.
Sure. Right.
It's a lot of money today.
Yeah.
So
you
imagine
need money
1935.
you need to collect some revenue to operate.
And they, so their goal was to make a bottle and bond bourbon, and they did in 1939. They came out with Old Heaven Hill Gold Label Bottle and Bond. But till then, they got there was a 2-year-old, the Bourbon Falls. So, but we've just become very successful over the years. Every craft distillery wants to be successful,
of course.
So but we started out that way too. So, but don't blame us now that we're big, and successful. You need us because we're going to give you some great value because we're so large that we're also going to be able to spread that cost over. And since we sell thousands of bottles compared to their one, we can do it at a good price.
We agree.
So we need both. There's a good both, but know why you're buying the 6-month-old. Is my point.
Right.
Know why, but know what it is, but also know why you're going to support it too.
Sure.
So, Barney,
Tim, before we start tasting
most
this,
of our I think most of our folks have a bottle of bourbon or a bottle of rye at home. I bet most don't have a bottle of corn whiskey.
Mellow corn.
Why would you reach for a corn whiskey in certain circumstances, or are you using it to make a certain cocktail, or why would you decide to make a corn whiskey?
Well, let me read the state of distillation. It takes 2 seconds, and then we're going
good.
to
I
start
didn't mean
tasting
to-
them both. No,
didn't
that's a great. No, I'm going to address that as soon as we finish this because we're just 2 seconds away from tasting.
there.
State of distillation is very simple. State of distillation is the state of distillation shall be shown on the label for any whiskey produced in the United States. So it's the state that it's distilled,
Right.
and aged in. So we think Kentucky is important because we have the experience of the generations of people that have been down there. If if your brother-in-law is a neurosurgeon and he says, I'm going to buy you a still and we're going to make whiskey because we have great passion for it. Well, that's great. But do you know how to use that still?
Right.
So you have to have experience. How do you age it? That's only part of it is making it. Where are you going to age it? We have those big rick houses. You've seen pictures of, you've been in the rick houses.
We've been
down
there.
That's only in Kentucky and surrounding states.
Right.
There's only one company that has the patent on those, and that's Busick. And they're not going to come to New York and build a warehouse. They're not going to go to Colorado or California or Florida and build warehouses. I think if you don't have one of those warehouses, you don't have Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. You might have New York bourbon whiskey. You might have, but that's different. Those are aged in heated and cooled warehouses, and it's going to be much different. It will be uniquely Terre Noir, whatever you want to call it. Terroir. It will be different, but it won't be Kentucky. So I think that's
funny,
really
'cause,
different.
our favorite barrel of rye was distilled in Indiana, but then aged in Kentucky. It makes
Correct,
a huge
yeah.
difference. Yeah.
So,
So it's
so
putting
when we
one of those-
start, so to address your question about corn whiskey, and the reason that I love mellow corn so much is not only because of the beautiful label that it is. Corn. Everybody used to make corn whiskey. Corn whiskey was really the blending whiskeys that you made the blended whiskey with. We didn't really make. We still don't. We still use corn whiskey in blending our Kentucky Deluxe or whatever. We still call that neutral spirits, even though it's been distilled at 140 proof. That is a lot more expensive to blend in than 190 proof.
Sure.
But so that's one use for us. The reason though that I like tasting corn whiskey, bourbon didn't start out in 1783 when Evan Williams was making it, 1789 when Elijah Craig, 1788 when Basil Hayden, 1795 when Jacob Beam was making it. They started out making unaged corn whiskey. Mm-hmm. They didn't even call it bourbon. It wasn't called bourbon until decades later. Mm-hmm. They didn't start using a barrel till 1820s. We don't know the year. We do know that people started asking back. If you read Mike Veach's book, Bourbon Whiskey and American Heritage, he has a letter from the 1820s or so that from New Orleans saying, please keep using those charred barrels.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't the rumor or whatever that Elijah Craig invented the
He's
charred
one
barrel?
of the stories of how the bourbon barrel became charred.
Mm-hmm.
He was, I don't know what he was smoking in his barn, but the barn caught fire. Right? And he got the fire put out, but it affected some of the barrels, but it would still hold liquid. And that's story number one. Another story is you've been to a cooperage, whatever, they put it in steam. High temperature steam to help bend those staves with those hoops. They didn't have that back in 1700s, early 1800s, so they would hang them above a fire to get them hot, and a lot of them would catch fire. So there's story number two. Story number three is you used whatever barrels you could get. In Louisville, that would be Thomas Broadhead's store, and he had a general store. So he had things delivered. Everything was delivered in barrels. It was a great container.
Right.
because of the shape, and you could roll it, and it's easy, and anything would fit. But a lot of brine was used because there was no refrigeration, and a lot of salts and different preservatives. Well, you didn't want to put your good whiskey into that, so you'd burn it out and sterilize it. There's story number 3. Story number 4, just to simply, the big market was New Orleans, and just to simply, what did they drink down there in the 1800s? They drank cognac.
Sazerac's cognac.
Right, sure.
Because the
French
Sazerac
stuff,
was
yeah.
first made with a cognac until it was cheaper to use American whiskeys, and then there was wars and stuff which caused cognacs not to be available too much. But they were aged in the types of barrels, charred or toasted barrels, and just to simply make our whiskey match more of the flavor of the cognacs.
Right.
That was a marketing or sales move. Now, which story do you believe of those 4? I believe them all.
Probably a
because
blend, right.
they weren't texting each other. Hey, Evan, this barrel works pretty well. You had to get those letters back and feedback from your customers saying, we want this.
Right.
And then, of course, then you're going to use it.
Yeah.
And it's going to become more a standard operating procedures. So that's reason there. So unaged corn whiskey was used first. And then you had this bridge of where they most certainly were using used barrels or a combination of new barrels. They're hard to come by and they're expensive, just as they are today.
Yep.
So
A lot of wood.
I look at corn whiskey as a little fish that comes in out of the water and crawls around. This is the missing link of
evolution.
how before we got to what bourbon is.
Right.
So
So how like a white whiskey
yeah,
becomes
so
bourbon.
I like to taste Georgia Moon when I do it. We have a tasting called the Evolution of Bourbon. We start with the unaged corn whiskey. That's what they were making. Then you get the little fish that crawls out on the shore. That's mellow corn. When I sip this mellow corn, I think of this is exactly how people were drinking whiskey in 1815. This is what they were drinking. So that's why I would drink it, because I want to know where it came from.
Right.
When I smell this, and I should always part your lips, and then when you taste it, what's it smell and taste like? I'm not so big. I don't have the best smeller in the world, so I don't have that. What I do, to me, it doesn't smell like a whole ton of lots going on there. To me, it is all 100 proof. These are all bottle and bonds, so these aren't. These are.
It has like an herbal quality that I wouldn't expect. Honestly, like
It does.
you
It does have a
definitely-
little eucalyptusy.
Yeah, you
kind
get
of
that.
thing
You get
going
that
on.
much more. I would figure it'd be much more flat and not have that kind of herbaceous spice to it, but it really does.
And all these, the first 3 we're tasting, have all been aged for 4 years. So it's a great comparison because they're all aged for the same amount of time. This is in a used charred barrel
So
for
the mellow,
4 years,
right, so
and
the
they're
mellow
all bottled
corn,
at 100 proof. So it's a great apples to apples, apples to oranges thing.
Right, mellow corn is in the used
It's in the
charred
used
barrel.
charred
so a
barrel.
refilled bourbon barrel.
Used Evan Williams barrel, you said.
Absolutely.
Right. Interesting.
We dump 1,000 of those a day. So we got them.
Right. No shortage.
So when we taste this, what do we taste? If you don't taste corn, you definitely taste grain. It's grainy.
For sure.
And that's what corn whiskey should taste like. It's grainy, it's raw,
It's smoother than I'd expect.
it's
as well.
really smooth, and it's all the front of your palate. You hardly taste anything in the back of your palate. There's 8% rye in here, and I'm not tasting anything spicy at all.
Right.
So think about it. When I think about grains, 80% corn, 12% malted barley, that's 92% sweet, 8% spicy. Right now, I'm getting a little spice in the very, 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 very back finish, and it's not even in the back of my palate. It's something else, and maybe it's not even that spice, but I'm feeling something tingly, right? But it's so sweet, so fun. This is like kettle corn with a kick. This is like
Yeah.
buttery corn, and I drink it by itself with a beer many
yeah.
times
Sure.
because I like to think this is really authentic 1815, 1820, 1825. This is where it all came from. This was the missing link. Now,
So what
bartenders are making cocktails with it. The Dutch is one of them here in town. They love mellow corn, and there's a different mellow corn. At least there used to be. It used to be the only spirit that never left the cocktail list. But they changed the recipe every month. I love Palomas with them.
Pretty wide open palette to paint a cocktail on top of, right?
Sure,
you're not,
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely has flavor. So they're, so these great mixologists are going to match cocktails with this. I like a Paloma with it. I've never
What's in
been
a
a huge
Paloma?
margarita fan, but I love tequila, and the margarita mix gets a little acidy, and you can only have only have 8 or 9 of them, but if you're on vacation, you want to drink all day, right? So a Paloma is grapefruit juice, so it's like a squirt, squirt or
Okay.
Fresca or grapefruit soda. So it's a mellow corn, grapefruit soda, and squeezed lime juice in it, and that's a Paloma.
So it's like a corn grapefruit margarita kind of thing. Yeah, that'd probably be damn good.
But I just like it by itself because it's history in a glass to me.
So before they were, what kind of barreling were they doing on this? If they weren't using a used bourbon barrel?
Well, they were taking that used pickle barrel and burning it out. Now
Okay.
we're not using pickle barrels anymore.
Right.
And then at the time, so when people started, the Evan Williams and the different Jacob Beeman people who were making whiskey, then Dr. James Crow and all the different history names of history, they were probably using a combination of new and used charred barrels, because if they were using whatever they get a hands on. There was no laws. These laws did not exist. Right. These evolved. And that's, again, why you want this. Now, let's taste the Evan Williams and see where that evolution went from this aged corn whiskey to an aged bourbon. Now, this is in a brand new charred oak barrel. And this is 4 years. Now, the recipe on this is slightly different than mellow corn. It's 78% corn, where the mellow corn was 80. It's 10% rye as opposed to 8. And it's still 12% malted barley.
So really close, though.
Very close. If you can taste the difference of these two, if they were aged in the same container, you're Richard Patterson. And neither one of you are Richard Patterson, right?
No, I don't have that kind of palate.
Only Richard could probably taste the difference in that.
But yeah,
so it's
that's-
basically, what a great tasting this is, because it's basically the same recipe, but one's in a used charred barrel and one's in a brand new charred barrel. So I usually go back and revisit the mellow corn. Now I'm going to see what that brand new charred oak barrel, same years, 4 years, same proof in the bottle.
It definitely
So different.
It definitely takes the charred barrel definitely takes a lot of the grassy graininess out of it.
Yeah, and adds that sweeter,
It adds-
richer molasses type of taste to it.
And the spice is there.
Yeah.
It's immediately there. I mean, bourbon, this is a traditional, classic bourbon. Immediate vanilla, honey, and caramel, and the immediate presence of the spice in the back of your palate.
Yeah, you get much more of
Bang.
that baking spice.
It's not it's not like in your face spice, but you're like, there's spice. And the sweetness really is really overpowering the rye, but that's bourbon.
Yep.
Yeah.
The nose just wakes up on this one. I mean, it's just.
And I'm telling you, I'm proud of this. It's only been around 4.5 years, and it's
Yeah.
the number one selling bottle and bond in the world.
Right.
I mean, Old Granddad's been around since ever. And really, this is going to overtake that? But the reason it is, and Old Granddad's awesome bourbon was my first favorite bourbon. Parma, Ohio, 1985. I remember, right?
That's where you first had it.
Yeah, at a comedy club.
right.
Absolutely. I was working there. And so what happens is our company kind of knows who uses this, and so everybody that uses Rittenhouse are making cocktails. So this is this is the Rittenhouse of bourbon. This is for making cocktails. The cocktail world loves it because of the 100 proof, and it's all you need is you don't need a lot of age for a cocktail. You need a great base spirit with a high enough proof, and 100 proof is high enough proof where even if I add
stand up to
vermouth
whatever
or
you
ice
put in
with
there.
the water, it's
Right.
going to not dissipate, and the cocktail is going to stand up.
Yep.
So that's why these are used, and that's why this has become the number one selling bottle and bond in the world.
Wow. Awesome.
Pretty amazing.
Old Granddad went skydiving for his 114th birthday, and his parachute didn't open up. And Ben saved his life, just caught him,
Yeah.
with his bare hands
I
on
did,
the way
I
down,
did.
and we brought him back to life.
We revived Old Granddad. Well, we did a podcast a few months ago about all the things that were going to be discontinued after 2016, things that we really love.
The rumor was out
And
there
the
that
old Granddad
114 was going to be.
So we like to think that
That's
our
not happening, I
that
understand, but,
right. Well, we like to think that our
thank
podcast
goodness.
played a
great
part
bourbon.
in saving old Granddad 114, which is I think what Steve was telling an exaggerated story of there.
I love it though.
But
The visual was amazing.
We'll take whatever credit we can for that. But
Sometimes I go with breaking out the paddles and
we shocked that sucker back to life. Yeah.
So now we've got Evan Williams fresh on our palate. Let's pick up the Rittenhouse Rye.
So this
Now this is 51% rye. This is in the traditional ways that Philadelphia and Maryland made ryes. We have corn in them. So we have the minimum, which is 51% rye, but there's 35% corn and 14% malted barley because there's more complex starches in rye, so you need a little more barley to break down those that's on there.
good to know. So this is a just rye. Let's say like
It's a
just,
rye whiskey.
just rye enough to be rye.
It's the minimum.
Yeah.
But that's
Kentucky
discounting
rye.
it though.
No, I'm not. I'm
To
not
be fair
discounting
though,
it.
that's discounted because people will look at a 95 or 100 and go, "Well, that's more rye."
Well, I don't
That's
think- I don't
not
think
really
it-
true.
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking
I know,
about.
but I'm just saying what people will hear.
I totally agree with you. Like
Yeah.
rye is
Because
rye.
a lot of people
once you
take
hit
it to
that.
just for having no information on their own.
Sure.
They'll say a 51's good, a 100's better.
No, that doesn't. It's all.
No,
it's
I
all
see it
taste.
every day in the marketplace. Every single day, and it tears through me.
All right, well,
like a bullet,
Beastmasters out there, don't be stupid. Once it's rye, and the rest
They're
is what
both
you like.
fine on their own
Yeah.
for what they
Well,
are.
they're very different.
But don't discount
Different.
them just for a recipe. Okay, this is more in the tradition of how Pennsylvania and Maryland ryes were. They're all made in Kentucky now that we make. So, and these are what's great about this tasting too is these first three whiskeys, same 3 grains,
Right?
and totally unbelievably different.
I mean, I'd love to see more bottles disclose the mash bills,
percentages.
especially on the ryes, because
Yes.
it's a huge difference. I love very high rye, 95, 100% ryes. I don't know about 100% rye, 99% rye.
Can't
whatever.
really have 100.
There are.
You
I
can.
Well, I
think.
guess if it's malted rye.
No, you
No,
can
you add the enzymes.
Right.
But they are extremely different. And this is more of a. Is this the same mash bill that the Rit 21, 23, 25s used? Yeah. So I mean that's one of our favorite.
Which we had more of that. That was a mistake.
I got them up there.
That Rit 23 is one of the most
Mistake.
amazing.
Those were found
whiskeys.
barrels that were
Yeah.
like, oops.
Stuff's
But
incredible.
you taste that and you could be fooled easily into thinking that was a bourbon.
Oh, absolutely.
It's 1% different.
Right.
And they're delicious. And you can taste the difference. But then when you get into the 95, 99% ryes, it does have a totally different character. I'm not saying one's
Yeah.
better than the other, but it
Right.
would be nice for people
Absolutely.
to disclose that so you could know.
Well, now we have. At least we have. I think we're the first distillery to disclose every single one of our recipes, the types of stills we use, the dimensions of our Vendome stills, the types of warehouses we have in the different locations, and how many thousands of barrels are in each location. That's on our new website, heavenhilldistillery.com.
Cool.
So
That's
there's
awesome.
total
That's great.
transparency, and I challenge everyone listening: go to that site. If there's some information there that we don't have that you'd like, email us and we'll put it on there.
Oh, thank you for
We
that.
want to be the first full disclosure
transparent.
company
I like that.
out there.
I think that makes sense.
That's great.
It's like I don't understand what anybody is hiding when they don't have anything to hide. Because most producers are especially like people that we're dealing with, I don't think they have anything to hide. Like they're not covering up anything. I feel like some people think these mash bills are in some way like
Well,
a
I'll tell you
trade
why.
secret
I'll
of
tell
some
you why because I
kind,
worked
or-
at 2 companies.
Yeah.
And they all had family distillers in them. I worked at Jim Beam for 7 years, and I've been at Heaven Hill, both with beams at them. And I'll tell you the difference. It's because that's their family secret. Have you ever tried to get your uncle's chili recipe from him? Right. Because he has the best in the world, and he writes it down for you, right? And you find out like 10 years later, he left out how much cumin he put in there or whatever,
Right.
just because that's my recipe, not yours.
Or he just does it to taste. You have to sit there and document it.
Right. So I think that's part of it. It's something our family had. I've even had family distillers tell me the wrong, just so that I could have an answer for somebody. But whatever. So what I challenged my company and our brand teams was, and our family was,
I need to get my chili in a
let's go ahead and
contest.
taste it. Let's go ahead and reveal what our recipes are. I mean, there was many factors. One of mine was, I said, people want to know. Part of my job is to go out and find what everybody wants.
Sure.
And so I was one of the, saying for everybody else, we want full disclosure. But I challenged them. I said, what happens when a craft distillery comes out with our recipe of 78, 12, 10, and now it looks like theirs? And if we say, no, we've been using that, we look like we're following them.
Right.
And I think that, Yeah, I never thought about that.
Right.
Way.
It's like, let's put it all out there.
There's certain things that, the Russells won't tell you. There's certain things the Beams won't tell you. There's certain things that Harlan won't tell you. Everybody likes to have their own little secret. But I like being totally transparent. And that's, and so I think we're getting there.
Yeah, I think for us, we're in agreement with that. Especially for people who are in our club, we want to get them as much information as possible so that they can figure out what they like and why they like it,
right? So
that they can focus in on the things that they want to buy. And I think that just makes sense. It's just good sense.
So
it's actually good business.
HeavenHillDistillery.com. Again, if we don't have something on there that you want, let us know.
Yeah, it's just good business. It's
interesting.
Like, let the people find out what they want.
Four Roses is very big on that. I feel like they put out all their recipes. Their
I think
mash
they led the
bills,
way.
Yep.
Because they
the
put the exact
warehouse,
recipes
they
on
can
there.
put everything
the exact
on there.
yeast strains on there. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, the yeast, everyone's a little dicey. I mean, nobody will get real detailed about
What
yeast.
it is,
But
yeah.
still, they tell you what
But
strain
they
it
tell
is
you-
and what that yeast is going to deliver to that,
Yeah,
to that
the
particular
characters of
recipe.
the
Yes,
yeast,
which is
yes.
great.
Because that's, I was publicly educated in Kentucky. I can't understand yeast anyway.
Right.
But
and then you
it's
got
getting
wild
a little too
turkey.
technical for me.
Then you got wild turkey that won't tell you anything. They won't even tell you the mash bill.
Yeah,
on it.
wild
right,
turkey's
because
very close to the
because
vest.
that's Jimmy and Eddie. That's their thing,
Which is
and you
kinda
got to
cool,
respect
too.
that.
I mean, look,
You
I wish
gotta
we
respect
knew. I
that.
wish we knew, but
Absolutely.
it is having just toured through the
I've
warehouse
even held him
with
down and
Eddie.
tickled him. He won't.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, what they're doing, whatever they're doing it right. So I'm not going to mess with their process. I'm not going to pretend to somehow know more than these master craftsmen. So
And then some of my all-time favorite whiskeys, like Willett's, Pappy's, like you don't even know where it came from. It could be you have no
Who
idea.
knows,
They tell
right.
you zero.
Well,
So it's
because
like sourced,
contractually-
handshake agreement kind of thing.
Well, a lot of times in those contracts,
yeah,
you can't tell,
that's right.
and if they tell, they can be sued.
Sure.
right, they're not allowed to say
So
where it comes from.
you can't blame them there. So what did you get on this Rittenhouse that was different than the traditional Evan Williams bourbon?
Yeah, they're so different.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing.
So it's that explosion of spice
Yep.
yeah.
with the finish of the vanilla, honey, and caramel, and that's what, in my opinion, that's what a Pennsylvania, Maryland / Kentucky kind of a rye does.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, it has much more of that upfront
It's just
spice.
totally opposite
Yeah.
with the same 3 grains.
For me, I'm a big rye fan. I'm probably always kind of generally rye over bourbon. Steve definitely has converted me into being much more of a bourbon lover.
Now, I defined high rye bourbons in my book and in my website. I was asking around for years, what's a high rye bourbon? Well, it just has a lot more rye in it. Well, what percentage is high?
So you
What
No
makes it
one
a,
had
quote,
it.
high rye?
I defined it.
30, 25, 30, something like that?
I defined it as 18% or more,
Okay.
Makes a high rye bourbon.
in my opinion. Now, I've had people disagree with that, and I said, well, that's fine. You write a book, and you put it in your book.
Yeah, like when I see
But
your
I
book on
kind
the
of
shelf.
I kind of beat you to it, and Jimmy doesn't agree with me what a high rye is. But that's
what's his definition?
Forget, but I've heard there is. But I'm like, well, I said, well, we joke around about it because there's no definition. I said, well, at least I got one out there. At least
Sure.
now you can agree with it or disagree with it. But now there's one out there. If you put it as less, it doesn't make it really that high. If you make it higher, you throw out Old Forester, Woodford. You throw out the lower, which Jimmy Rutledge always told me at Four Roses that all of his was high rye, and his one with the least in it is 18. So I used 18 as the
break
entry
point,
level, and
yeah.
anything over that. So if you only have 2 in there, that doesn't really make a category.
Right. Yeah.
So I agree with you. There should be a category. So, but I defined it. So, in any of y'all out there who it's a great discussion point.
Yeah, throw your hat
Whether
in the
I'm
ring.
right or wrong, hey, we're talking about it, right?
Sure.
So OE Four Roses OE blank blank would be still a high rye
Under that definition.
under that definition. See, I don't know.
But
That seems
Jimmy
strange, but
Rutledge said everything he makes was high rye. So
Right.
under
Well,
that
there you go.
definition,
That-
and then I asked Jimmy Russell, "Are you high rye?" He said yes, and I said, "Are you 18?" He goes, "Oh no," so that threw him out.
Right.
so he's lower. What were you saying? He's lower than 18?
I mean, he didn't tell me the exact percentage, but he said he wasn't 18.
Huh.
You know, that's how I got around that. You know, of asking but not asking, because I respect. You know, I would never ask him what his.
But he
his
couldn't have meant
percentage was.
he couldn't have meant more than 18.
No, he meant less
clearly
than
meant
18.
less. Okay.
Right,
Interesting.
right.
Which, you know, to a lot of people, 16 or 17 would be high, and it is high. But somebody's got to find it, right?
Yeah.
Even Mason Dixon had to draw the line somewhere. Right?
And where's Elijah Craig bourbon? What's the recipe on that?
It's the same, traditional bourbon recipe, 78, 10, 12.
Okay.
Okay.
It's just aged longer, you know, 8 to 12 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And now we're going to taste the Henry McKenna. So let's revisit the Evan Williams Bottle and Bond. And these are both the same whiskeys too.
So this is the same
78,
same spirit,
10, 12.
same spirit
exact spirit.
that is
But
aged
the
longer.
Evan Williams is 4 years, and the Henry McKenna is 10 years. So that shows what the difference of 6 additional years of aging does on a brand new charred oak barrel with the same whiskey. What a great tasting this is!
This is fun.
Yeah, it is awesome. I love the comparison. They're all at 100.
Apples to apples and apples to oranges. So this is apples to apples.
Yeah.
And this 6 more years. of
all at
aging.
100 proof, and we're dealing with the same recipe, just different ages.
So giving some people some ideas of a tasting at home.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah, much more smoothed out. Obviously,
Much
from
more
the age.
pronounced flavors.
Yep.
Of the, you know, now we're starting to approach some wood notes.
Get some
10 years.
some more chocolatiness coming out. Things
Absolutely.
like that start
Some
to emerge.
cacao, if you want to be real.
Yeah,
Highfalutin.
indeed.
You know, I was at a tasting at Keen Steakhouse with, you know, all the biggies for that BAR program. With Bill
Love
Groff and
Keens.
Steve and all the
Yeah,
rest.
we're big fans.
And
of
there was a
Keens.
guy. I was fairly new into business, and I grew up a very picky eater in Kentucky. And I'm the kid who always had to separate everything. You know, nothing could touch anything.
Nice.
You know, I didn't eat a lot of vegetables, and I wasn't very experimental growing up with the eating. I still am not. And people say, Steve Olson, he said, "What do y'all taste here?" And the guy next to me goes, "I taste marzipan," and I'm thinking, oh shit, I don't even know what marzipan is. This guy's tasting it, and I'm not gonna do very well on this at all, right? So if when I taste now, if I want to look like I know what I'm talking about, I always go, I get a whisper of marzipan.
Hints of marzipan. Nice. Love it.
What is marzipan? It's
An
like
almond,
it's like
a sweet almond paste.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I loved it when
a
I
lot
was
of cake
a kid.
decorations.
I'm not a huge fan of it anymore. Like, I mean, it's good, but when I was a little kid, I loved it.
I mean, for
couldn't
tasting
get
notes, how
enough.
many people eat marzipan all the time and make that a?
Nah, it's not.
It's like the
not
people
super
who,
common.
you know, it's like the people who say, "I taste leather." You know, who knows what leather tastes like? And you can't ask David Carradine
You haven't
anymore,
been
right?
chewing on a shoe lately?
You know, I say that. It's more in the nose.
Nose.
You get that leather
Yeah.
polish kind of thing, and then when you taste it, if that characteristic continues, I don't know.
Well,
Maybe that's a silly thing to
Again,
say.
I think we probably say this.
I've
we probably
never
say
chewed
this
We're
on
not
on-
using you're just using your experience.
Exactly. We probably say this in every podcast that we do and with everyone that we talk to about these things, but the semantics of describing smells and tastes is a whole thing because you have to relate it to something that people can
Absolutely.
identify.
Part
and
of
that
the
they
fun
can,
that makes this
Yeah.
interesting.
It's cool. Like
And
when
why
you
we're
do-
listening to a
when
podcast,
you
why we're
describe,
talking
like, this
about it.
tastes like pencil shavings and leather. Obviously,
Right.
you haven't been eating that stuff, but it's evocative, right? Like it lets people.
School's boring
understand.
sometimes.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
You do. I wonder
Yeah,
what that
yeah.
pencil shaving
You don't
tastes
ever
like.
want to be the kid who's eating glue, but pencil shavings might be okay.
Yeah. With a little cheese sauce on it. Not bad.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, you know, when you talk to Parker, you know, when I was always with Parker at Whiskey Fest and stuff, he'd always say, I just taste good bourbon.
Sure.
Because to him, all those flavors came into one thing that to him that's what I'm going for. He would never, he said, if you taste banana, if you taste pencil shavings, he goes, I didn't put any of that crap in there.
Yeah. That's
Well, there's chemistry. I mean, when you char wood,
Absolutely.
there's all kinds of vanillins, and that's a word I picked up.
Absolutely.
Vanillin, right.
Vanillin.
That's a David Pickerel. That's a David Pickerel
Well,
saying.
that-
He-
no, but that's
no, but it
true.
is.
It-
the folks
There's
that-
six-
It's undeniable.
There's
You can
six-
taste
at least
it.
6 different types of vanillins in a
in
vanillin.
a charred oak barrel. Yeah. So it's like
Now I know how to pronounce that. Vanillins.
vanillin.
You could just say
Like
vanilla.
lanolin.
Great band name, the Vanillins.
The Vanillins. Bernie and the Vanillins.
Bernie and the Vanillins.
I see it. I see it now.
White chocolate and the Vanillins.
Sweet music, man.
Yeah.
So we have this. So these are just 4 whiskeys, but there's a lot going on in this tasting.
Oh yeah.
When it came to the difference between a used charred barrel in a brand new charred barrel. What the exact difference between, now you know exactly what the difference between corn whiskey and bourbon and rye whiskey are. And now you know the difference between what 6 additional years does.
And so let's just say that the cool thing also that I think about this tasting for everyone who's listening to the podcast is that these 4 whiskeys that we've tasted so far, and probably one of the next 2 that we're going to jump into, you can go to any good liquor store that you know and pick up these bottles and set this up for yourself and play along with us.
And they're $30 or less.
Yeah, and all of these bottles are very affordable, very accessible, and easy to obtain. So I mean, even a decent liquor store should have most of this stuff, but certainly any good one that you know.
This McKenna was one of the first bottles I put on our little liquor store.
Yeah,
online, because I mean, it's there's a few no-brainers when it comes.
How
to
many
affordable.
10-year-old bourbons are out there on the market these days?
Bottle and Bond 10
You
year?
can
That's
name
what-
them.
yeah.
Single barrel.
Well, and that goes into, there's only one other single barrel bottle and bond on the planet.
Oh wow, and what's that one?
When you think about it, you'll get it.
Single barrel
Bottle and bond.
There's
There's only it shares a line with the only other single bottle and bond rye whiskey in the world.
Evan Williams is not bottled and bond. Old Granddad is not bottled and bond.
E.H. Taylor.
Oh yeah, I've had that. Yep.
But that's not
Indeed.
10 year.
Right, there's no age on it.
Yeah.
And how much is it a bottle?
Yeah. Well, it
Yeah,
depends.
well more.
And
Oh,
can
the
you get
single
it?
barrel $60? You can get
Okay. And,
Well,
and
this-
it's hard to get.
I mean, the McKenna is one
there's-
of the best
there's-
values.
And
we
there's
feel that's
10-year
out
age
there.
statement, single barrel, bottle and bond, and how much is it?
Yep.
I mean, and they're not ripping you off. We're a bigger distillery. We make more bottle and bond, and I'm going to read the laws for bottle and bond here.
Well, use
because it
Taylor's
shows.
Buffalo Trace. That's no small operation, right? I mean,
No, but you can only use barrels you fill in 1 6-month period. That puts it down
Right.
to a way other,
Right.
and they got to feed other brands. So
Well, yeah,
it puts it into a whole different deal.
We've always thought that the McKenna is one of the best values in the world for bourbon.
Like I said,
For a
name
really
the 10-year-old
quality single
bourbons.
barrel.
Let's name the 10-year-old bourbons out there.
right.
Okay.
There's just not that many.
Bullet makes one.
Bullet makes a 10 year.
Bullet makes
Eagle
one.
Rare.
They
Michter's-
used to. Didn't they take the age statement
If you
off
can
of it?
find a Michter's
Michter's.
that's 10 years old, if you can find
Yeah.
it, and
It
how much is it a
exists.
bottle?
Yeah, it's
You know?
pricey.
Whistle Pig's
Yeah.
not a bourbon, but it's a 10-year-old.
Smooth
rye,
Ambler puts
but
out
it's
a 10 year.
Smooth Ambler.
But
Okay.
they just took that off the market.
Yeah, gone.
Right.
No
Gone.
longer.
Yeah.
So we're down to and
Very
this,
few.
and it's
Yeah.
every day. No, we're not going to tell everybody because then if we do, it's going to be gone, right? Or
Well, yeah.
allocated. So only the cool kids, right?
Well, that's why we put it out for in our store for the club, and we really think that it's one of the best for the money that exists.
Absolutely. So we've got the Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. Those are great medals and great badges. So these all have bottle and bond on them. All 6 of these. Bottle and Bond further states, and this is on the back of your card. I gave her.
Bernie gave us
Ben
business
card.
cards.
It's my card. It
It's
advertises
amazing.
my
Bernie-
website.
Bernie's
whiskeycroft.com.
Bernie's business cards has the bottled and bond legal definitions on the back
It's
of
on
it,
the back
just
of the
in,
card.
just in case.
But I'm going to read.
you know.
It's an encapsulation of this. And I've had distillers say this doesn't mean anything. And I said, well, why is it this whole page? We just read little paragraphs, little few sentences that mean a lot. But this is a whole daggone page, right? So why is it not viable? Well, it's very viable. And bottle and bond, aged in bond, James Bond, right?
Dun, dun, dun.
As long as it or phrases containing these or synonymous terms shall not be used on any label as part of the brand name of domestic distilled spirits. So this is not a whiskey law or a bourbon law. This is domestic distilled spirits. Unless they are composed in the same kind of spirits produced from the same class of materials. Now, laws are meant to be interpreted. I take that as I couldn't mingle corn whiskey with bourbon
It
whiskey.
has to be like with like.
Yeah. Okay. Produced in the same distilling season by the same distiller at the same distillery. Not only is that good alliteration, that tells you why some of those other bottle and bonds are a little bit more expensive, is because it's only barrels you can fill in a season. What's defined as a season, for us, we have 2, spring and the fall. Remember the Parkers? Look on the back of that Parkers there, Steve. And on the
think this is
back
fall.
label, it says spring or fall. We had 2. So spring season is January through June. Fall season is July through December. So Ben, look up that Henry McKenna, and on it has
Fall
the
of
fill date.
1990.
So the Parker's was the fall. That means it was anywhere from July through December. Where does it say on the front? It has handwritten what date that was filled in the barrel.
Oh yeah, so this is October 28th, so it's a fall.
That's fall. So now we're learning this is a fall. So this particular McKenna is a fall expression. On those tax stamps, it used to always say spring or fall. You know, filled in the spring of 1936 and bottled in the fall of 42. So I wish we did that again, and we started to do that again with this Parker's because we got another product coming out later this year that's gonna kind of really talk about full disclosure and all this again.
Okay.
So really cool. So it's a 6-month period. So that's why you don't find these brands that are millions of cases because it's only brands. It's a small little category.
Yep.
Subcategory, if you will, bottle and bond. And that's why you don't see a lot of these big distilleries doing it because, you know, they're not going to screw around with
And they have
80,000 case brand or a 50,000 case brand because they're got Wall Street on their back. And if they don't show profits, you know, whatever, who's, who else is going to mess around with a 6,000 case corn whiskey but us? Because we do what we want to do. So that's a really cool thing about it. Stored for at least 4 years, and here you go. So bottle and bond, Steve, is 4 years minimum. In wooden containers, wherein the spirits have been in contact with the wood surface, except for gin and vodka. So here you go. It's taken a half an hour to get to the answer to this question.
Gin and vodka can be bottled in bond, but not
Have you
in
ever
a
seen
wood
one?
barrel. Never.
Can't think of
Here's
one.
why. Which must be stored for at least 4 years in wooden containers, coated or lined with paraffin. Or other substance which preclude the contact of spirits with the wood surface.
But it has to be in wood, but
What is the
lined
point
with
of
but
that?
something.
not touch the wood.
Yeah.
You know,
Wax
I gotta
filled
love
wood.
this. This is it. This is 1897 all over,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
This is the whiskey producers going. If we gotta wait 4 years, they gotta wait 4 years.
Yeah, you can just imagine the lobbyists dealing with the people who are writing these
A lot
laws.
of $100 handshakes going on. Reduced in proof by the addition of pure water only. So it wasn't the straight act of the Taft decision of 1909 that defined pure water only. It was 1897.
And is this the oldest?
Yeah, this is the first
purity
consumer.
laws?
This is the first consumer protection legislation in the history of the United
Yeah,
States.
I thought so. That's great. Yeah.
So 9 years before we cared about the safe labeling of our food, we cared more about the quality of our whiskey, which is great.
We know what's important for Americans.
So pure water only in 100 degrees of proof. Can you guess why bottle and bond must be exactly 100 proof every single time, not 99.9, not 100.1? Why do you think 100 proof was chosen?
I'm not 100% sure on that one.
Because it's a proof gallon, and that's what the government cares about. That's what they get a
That's
tax
the
on.
tax on. A proof gallon. I gotcha.
50%, 1 gallon of 50% alcohol is
It's
a proof
half
gallon.
a proof gallon.
We
Oh,
pay
right.
We pay $13.50 a proof gallon right now.
I gotcha. Right. So 100% pure spirit is 2 proof gallons.
Okay.
Yeah. 200 proof.
Okay.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Makes
It's
sense.
100% pure alcohol.
Again,
it's
I was
200
publicly
proof.
educated in Kentucky. Now you're
Well,
getting-
no, that totally makes sense. So yeah, you can scale that up or back.
There you
but
go.
That makes sense.
In addition to the requirements, the label shall bear the real name of the distillery. Here we get into true disclosure. Okay? It must name the real name of the distillery, and that produced and warehoused the spirits, and the plant or registered distillery number which produced, and the plant in which bottled. So, when you look at that bottle of Parker's,
Right. So it says
should say-
distilled and bottled by Old Heaven Hill Springs Distillery, Bardstown, DSP, KY.
so that's the distilled spirits
31.
plant
You can't
number,
do any of that.
DSP, and that says DSPKY.
31.
Right.
So you can't do any of that funky sourcing, but not disclosing.
You can,
with
but
a
right,
bottled and
right.
bond.
You have to disclose
And
it.
this one says a different number, though.
Right.
Ben, so because remember we had a fire. That 24-year-old was from our old distillery, which burned down. Now we have a different distillery, which is a different DSP.
This is DSP KY31.
Well, that's the same. That's the bottling, but the one above that is DSPKY.
Oh, DSP KY1.
That is our Bernheim facility in downtown Louisville, Kentucky. And if you're confused
Right, bottled by. Right.
It has to
Distilled
be
at
the
DSBKY.
bottling plant.
So this is
So you have to list not just where you made it, but who bottled it. You talk about
right.
full disclosure.
real
Bottle and
disclosure.
Bond is the full disclosure. So that's why I call Bottle and Bond the Eagle Scout of spirits. It's the Navy SEAL. It's the Green Beret of spirits. It has all the badges. It has all the medals. Why wouldn't you want every single one?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, is it that it must be exactly 100 proof or at least 100
Exactly.
proof?
Exactly. No, they're all 100 proof.
So
Right.
so Wild Turkey 101 cannot be Bottle
Right,
and Bond.
sure.
And that's why they don't care about it, because Bottle and Bond's not a thing. They've hung their hat on 101. A pretty good job
I'm all
of it,
for the
right?
disclosure, but we also really do enjoy cast strength spirits. So
And we make them.
yeah, of course you do.
But
no
we
dispute.
want to show that Bottle and Bond is what, I mean, my dad used to call it the good stuff.
Absolutely.
And he didn't really know why. But he, and on the most times it says under supervision of the United States government because of the laws. That's back when people trusted the government. It was a very long time ago. Right? But still, there's no getting around these laws. And people
Right.
say, well, you don't have these. The treasury agents don't live there anymore. Hey, they come in and audit.
Right.
And you know what? They're not going to little craft distilleries to audit
No.
for the most part. They're coming to us. And we're supposed to get audited every 3 years. We get them every year, a year and a half. You know why?
Right.
We have money.
They want to get in there and see what's going
Because
on.
they're not. It's like IRS. IRS ain't going to come after me, or maybe you all make a lot more money than me. But they're not going to come after me.
Sure, it's
What,
not
if
worth
they
their
find
time.
out we're going to get $1,000?
Yeah.
They're not going to mess around with me. They're going to mess around with billionaires, or
Sure.
whatever.
Hopefully.
So yeah, no.
Those guys are probably paying them off not
Right.
to. But
So
it's okay.
millionaires. They're going to get the guys in the middle, right? So that's why I like Bottle and Bond so much, and I think that's why everybody else should, especially these days. The word straight, the word Bottle and Bond means so much more now than
Yep.
it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For
And
sure.
if you look at there's some craft stores. Willett just came out with a Bottle and Bond. Old Bardstown, Kentucky only. Law's Distillery in Colorado has a Bottle and Bond. I think one of the New York distilleries has a Bottle and Bond now, or around the area. And they're $80, $90, $100 a bottle. 4 years old.
Right.
Right. But again, they have to make their full line first. They have to feed their main line, which ours in the case is the number 2 selling bourbon in the world, Evan Williams. And then we got to have enough left over to fill for Evan Williams Bottle and Bond and Henry McKenna Bottle and Bond. So I call Heaven Hill the Reno, Nevada of distillery. We're the biggest little distillery in the world. We're big because we are big, and we make no apologies for it. We fill 1,000 barrels a day. We fill 310,000 barrels a year. And we got a new still going in this year, and starting in August, and in 2018 we'll be filling over 400,000 barrels a year because you people are so damn thirsty.
That's good.
I take full
Right.
responsibility.
Yeah, we're willing to claim that title.
So we want to be able to feed these brands and feed our mainline brands.
Yeah, and
as well.
I don't think there's anyone who should be ashamed of running a good business and having that
Absolutely.
growth and being able to turn a
Held
dollar.
the torch. We put
Yeah.
the bookmark in.
Like, I think it's
For all these
great.
people to get in. It's great.
I mean, the only reason that
I
all
see that
these,
bottle open.
Yeah, I
don't
keep-
want to be
waiting
assumption.
I'm
assuming
waiting for
that you're
a-
going to pour the 24-year-old.
I'm going to let
No,
you
we're
pour it.
gonna
I'm
dig
waiting
into
for
this.
an opening
You
to
all-
suggest
go
that
ahead,
we.
go ahead. Here.
Let's have a little.
And we will do a toast. And if you're at home, run now and get a one of our bottles of Heaven Hill whiskeys, because we're going to do a toast to Parker here.
Yeah.
Because Parker passed away just about 6-8 weeks ago, and he's with our company for 56 years. He battled ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and he was a very passionate and hardworking gentleman. Not only was he distiller at the number 2 selling bourbon distillery in the world, he was a farmer. He had 200 head of cattle.
Oh wow!
And even at the end, he would still work the cattle.
No, that's
He
great.
wasn't able to drive the gator, but he would have the grandkids. He insisted on sitting behind the wheel. He had to be in. But they steered it for him, and they weren't going very fast or going fast. But and I told him, I said, Parker, you still come to the visitor center. You sign bottles. You're around people. He felt that love from people. People just wanted to be around him and talk to him a little bit. And I was at the last bourbon festival, and I think he knew it was his last bourbon festival. He says, Bernie, I want to make sure, are they taking care of you? Don't let them work you too hard. Traveling's tough. I didn't travel as much as you. And I said, but you're still out there working, Parker. I said, you should take it a little bit easy.
Yeah.
Here, you're coming to the end here. He looked at me and says, well, you're going to die one day too. I'm like,
It's all all
wait a
true.
minute. This is yeah. What? And he says, Bernie, I like to stay busy.
Yeah.
He says, so on the day I die, I hope it's late in the afternoon so I can get a lot done that day.
All right.
And he died at 3:30 in the morning, so I think he got a lot done that day. So
Yeah,
here's to
indeed.
Parker,
Cheers.
24-year-old Parker, 100 proof bottle and bond.
All right.
Here's to you, Parker.
Cheers.
Love you, miss you.
Ooh.
Now this is the same exact recipe as that Henry McKenna and the Evan Williams. So this is 20 more years than the Evan Williams and 14 more years. What's it doing
This
compared
would
to
have been
those?
a different. This was the
different
distillery that burned.
Yeah,
that,
but it's
yeah.
still
Same recipe.
Still,
Same
same recipe,
ingredients,
same basically
right.
same stills.
I mean,
the
the smoothness and just
I mean, a different still,
depth of
you know,
flavor.
but still made by the same company.
Right.
But a little different makeup. But there is a rule of thumb. Has anybody told you all of the distiller's rule of thumb? Greg
the
Davis taught me this.
Ingredient,
He's the maker.
still,
He's the
barrel.
Maker's Mark Master Distiller, and it really helps me put things into perspective. So, if you keep everything else equal and you change the yeast strain, the final product will taste 10% different.
Right.
If you keep everything equal and change the distillation, the type of still, or the amount of how you bring it off the still, it's a 15%. That will taste 15% different. Your recipe, your fermentation, your grains, that's a 25% difference. If you keep everything else different and you change the grains. Aging, 50%.
Sure.
So this 24, that's a sliding scale. This probably goes up to 60%.
Yeah.
For the aging. It's a great way to look at something. When I look at age and I look at, like, Four Roses did it. Four Roses only has 1-story warehouses.
Right.
So they don't get the 50%. It's probably down to 40 or less.
Right.
So they use the
Little more
different
control.
recipes, the 25% of the recipes and the 10% of the yeast strains, and they do a mingle. It's genius because they knew they didn't have. I mean, a warehouse costs $5.5 million a build.
Sure.
You can tear these down and build 50 new ones,
Quick. Yeah.
which is $500 million, or you can just keep these and let's change this. I don't know that's why they did it, but that's my idea of why they did it. It makes sense to me. When Greg told me that, I was like, wow, thank you. That really puts it in perspective of me of when I look at yeast strains, recipes, types of stills, and aging, what's going on.
It's a good way to just kind of prep yourself for understanding what the variables are and how they affect things. Yeah.
Well, I don't know what happens with these older whiskeys, but it's got this. The first thing I get is this waxy, putty kind of thing, this musty character to it that you
Been in
just
there a
don't-
long time.
You just don't get from
Genie's
young
been in the
stuff.
bottle a
Yeah.
long time.
I think there's definitely
I totally agree with you.
There's
on
definitely
that.
a thing with organic compounds where over time they change and they morph. So, when you're dealing with longer time, you're going to have way different expressions of those chemical compounds than you do in like shorter periods. So as the whiskey ages, you've got a lot of different things changing and morphing in there. And the longer it goes on, the more it's going to vary or depart from what it was. And I think that's what you get. And you get that with anything that you like put away in a jar or in a barrel. And it doesn't, like, as long as it's an organic thing, that's what happens,
I don't honestly know if I like that character of it because I associate it with older whiskey, or if I like older whiskey. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's a weird thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I've drank enough of it that I'm like, oh, this is something.
Well, the mellowness definitely starts to come out. It smooths out a lot more.
For a 24-year-old whiskey, there's a lot going on here. Usually, all I get for an older whiskey is wood and oak notes. Oak
Yeah, no,
notes,
it's not
wood, over oaked. I'm not a huge fan, by the way, of older whiskeys. I like 50 for us. For what I've tasted it with Heaven Hill, I like 15 years and younger. But this is, and it's Parker's. It should be special, and these are special barrels. We had double the amount of barrels for this.
Right.
But half of them
Threw a
didn't
bunch
taste
to
good
the side
Oh,
after a
interesting.
certain time.
because it was just, and it was, where'd that go? It tasted horrible. You
Right.
didn't want to. I mean, that's the danger of
It's the
over
risky
aging.
run. It's a risky
People always say,
run.
well, 24, again, if 50%, 51% is good, 95 or 100 is better.
Yeah.
If 10 years old's good, 30 years better. No.
Yeah.
I mean, we waited all that time, and you wasted all that whiskey, and you've paid all that tax. I mean, we have paid taxes on the barrel, $2 a barrel per year in Kentucky.
Oh, wow. I
On
didn't know
top
that.
of all the taxes.
Right. So, I mean,
Property tax like your house or your car.
it's risk like anything else. The longer
Absolutely.
you hold on to something, the more you invest into it, you're taking on that greater risk in the hopes of coming up with something like this that in the
So
end
for
is
every one of
amazing.
these barrels, we paid $2 per year. We paid $48 per barrel
Right. Just to have it sit.
just to make it sit longer.
Yep.
Doesn't sound like a lot when you start
No, but
going
at
hundreds
scale.
and thousands. Yeah. These were hundreds of barrels.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is good stuff though. Yeah. If you can find this, if you can get your hands on it, we
It's a
highly
special.
recommend.
It's not
it.
an everyday drink,
No,
obviously.
it's not. But
They're all gone. They're on the secondary market now.
if you feel like splurging,
Thank you for sharing this one with
wouldn't
me.
go
That's a treat. I don't get to drink this every day. So
Thanks for coming, man.
yeah, we're really happy to have you.
yeah.
Yeah.
So while we have you, we got to ask, what can you tell us about we just bought a barrel of Elijah Craig. Can you tell us a little bit about that barrel program and what we're picking up there?
Well, I don't know what barrel you got. I'm sure you have information on the barrel you got, but we changed. Elijah Craig used to be a 12-year product, and we changed it to because of that brand is up over 50% nationwide. We knew that we were going to have to, if we kept the age statement on there of 12 years, we were going to have to, the brand would shrink 30%. That brand's been around since 1986. You don't grow a brand for 31
Right.
years to make it shrink 30%. We also knew the history of WL Water 12, and you saw where that went. It's still available, but you can't get it. And if you can get it, it's $50 a bottle instead
Right.
of the $20-some it used to be.
Right.
So we knew where that was going to go. We thought, and the owners thought, and our distillers thought, we've built this brand. It's becoming, people love this brand. We should keep it available on the shelves at the amount that it is and the cost that it is. It should still be around $30 and available every day instead of being turned into a unicorn. Right? So that's what we did. It's a tough decision. Not everybody agrees with the decision, but I also tell people we are in the bourbon business, not the bourbon charity. Right? You can get your own distillery and make your own decisions, right?
Right.
And this is the decisions
Totally.
we made, and I'm sorry if we made you mad, but we also are in a good spot because now the 12-year is still available, but it's in the barrel proof, so we can have our whiskey and drink it too. So you can still have the 12-year-old Elijah Craig. It's the barrel proof.
Yeah, we
So
love all that
That's
stuff.
what we came up with. If you all had a different scenario, sorry, you don't own the company. Okay?
Such as the
Absolutely.
breaks, right?
On the other hand, I'm not sorry. It's the decision we made, and it's the decision our
Yeah.
owners made. So, and
Well, and
I gotta,
they-
live, I didn't get a vote. No one asked me.
So
you know?
is the barrel proof the same? It's just the same selection of barrels, and then they just grab some of them and dump them at barrel
Absolutely.
proof, and others they
Yeah.
water
Now
down.
Elijah Craig usually all comes from. Now, does this say what floor is it on? And that, let's see. Yeah, floor 4. Usually Elijah Craig comes from floors 4 and higher. Because we get that they age a little faster when it comes from
Temperature
the higher
swings.
floors, and so that's one reason which made Elijah Craig. Most all of our rye comes from floors 4 and higher. That's why those 21 and 23 and 25 writs. That before that standard was written, that's where they found those barrels was the first floor, and they're like, well, there's not supposed to be rye on this first floor, and that's why those barrels were found, and they didn't even know rye was down there. We learn over time, and that's why things change. This is a Deatsville barrel. This is Warehouse Double B. So that's out in Deatsville. That's the Parkers from a few years ago, the Promise of Hope from out there. Those little stair step. So floor 4 in Deatsville is going to get a lot more heat than floor 4 out at Warehouse Y and other warehouses around. So that's I'm not saying Deatsville's our best warehouses. I'm just saying this is what's happening in this particular one barrel in this warehouse.
That's great.
Sure.
We can just quote out Deatsville's our best warehouse.
Deatsville is our best warehouse.
They're not, but I'm just saying that things do age better, different.
Yeah,
there.
sure. There's variability.
Actually, Warehouse Y is one of Parker's and Craig's favorite warehouses because of the airflow too. You got to have airflow. If you don't have good airflow, you don't have good bourbon. And this was. Did they have an age on this?
9.5, I think.
8. almost 9 years or something
what it
like
was?
that.
And
I
were
thought it
there
was
other
9.
barrels that you tasted that were older or younger?
Well, they didn't tell. They didn't. She didn't tell us the ages on all of
All
them.
of them.
Okay.
We
We
tasted
just
them all
learned this.
blind, and then.
So
got
isn't
the
it
age on
interesting?
this
You
one.
picked, you know, it probably was.
Picked a near
you picked a
9-year-old
barrel,
bourbon.
a 9.5-year-old barrel over a 12-year-old barrel. So that's one of the exercises we wanted people to do was if you said there, you know, if we told you the age before you tasted it, you would immediately taste the
Sure,
oldest.
of course.
Maybe, yeah. But you
Yeah.
never know.
So
it definitely.
as it turns out, you know, because of this ages differently in Deatsville and it ages differently in that particular fourth floor. This could have been from the outside where the airflow is better instead of the inside where the airflow isn't as much. Who knows? But you know, I'm sure it's a great barrel, and it's awesome. You got it coming to you.
And I think
Yeah.
it's important for everybody to understand that the number of years, the actual age statement, doesn't mean everything. All right, so there's a lot of variability beyond just a number.
Yeah. And I only know it's Deatsville because it says warehouse double B. We only have double letters in Deatsville, and there's only 7 warehouses.
Double D. All
Double D.
right.
Double
D.
in Bernie. So this is Bernie.
Double B.
Bernie, double Bernie.
Double Bernie.
Nice. I like it.
Bernie's
Bernie
bourbon.
Bernie.
Bernie's bourbon.
Bernie's bourbon.
BB.
Bernie's
You
bourbon
got
barrel.
Bernie's barrel.
Well, yeah. All right.
We are very excited for it. I would say that if we could get a barrel at barrel strength, that would be cooler.
Well, you keep clicking
we
your
are.
heels together, Dorothy.
We are, and we always.
You know,
we
again,
always
we're in
itch
the
out
bourbon
an
business, not the bourbon charity. We get something every
Well,
once in a
I'll
while,
tell
so
you what.
that's ours to sell.
I'll tell you what.
That's not your all's
We'll
to
pay the
have.
same amount for the barrel, and it should just be easier. You don't even have to add water.
Again,
Yeah, just dump
we
it
get
into
to have
bottles for
something
us.
that you all don't have because we own the damn stuff. Okay, so we're gonna have the barrel proof, and you're not. That's
Yeah.
just the way it's
No,
gonna.
not-
happen.
I mean, we
And I don't
love-
know if that's the family decision or the reason,
We
but in
love-
my mind, that is because we get to have some cool bourbon.
I hope so.
everybody has, yeah.
And we love the Elijah Craig barrel proof as well, the 12-year. I mean, that's one of our faves, and you know, we're just fans of spirit out of the barrel.
Absolutely.
And that's
Who
part of
isn't?
what we do.
That's why
But-
Pikesville's so popular right now because it's 110.
Right.
It's not
And
barrel proof, but it's pretty
we're
pretty
also-
high proof.
We're also super excited about the Elijah Craig barrel that we got because we feel like out of all the barrel programs out there that we've looked at, this is again just such an amazing value and just such a really high quality bourbon at an incredible price. And I don't think you can beat that. We haven't seen anything that even comes close to being able to offer a private barrel at that kind of a price range and
Absolutely.
of an incredible.
It would take a family-owned company to do that.
Exactly, and it's an incredibly quality bourbon that
We'd rather sell 12 of something than 1 of something.
Yeah, and
'Cause we have 12 of
We're
something.
proud to stand behind that, and like we want to offer people something at a good price.
And I think that our owners, and I've heard them say it before, not on press releases and stuff, but they say that our bourbons should be available to the dishwasher in the kitchen or the server or bartender that's serving it or the millionaire that's ordering it.
Yeah, God bless.
It should be
absolutely.
available. Bourbon and American whiskey should be approachable for everyone.
No, cheers, and I think that's a great philosophy, and you know the recent like insanity and inaccessibility of a lot of this stuff is while I appreciate that the craft and that these incredibly made and sought after spirits are going for ridiculous prices, and I understand why. It's just it's not readily available, and a lot of people want to get their hands on it. Supply and demand. But you want to have really quality stuff available for everybody, and you know it's not something that should be so precious and special. You know, and it's really like people make this stuff, and we talk about this a lot, for people to enjoy and have a good time and hang out with their friends and relax. And if that becomes an issue and a problem, then I feel like everybody's lost track. You know, we've lost track of what we're trying to do.
All right, so we're agreed. So next year you're going to get us a bottled and bond private barrel and a barrel proof private barrel, and we'll get one of these and we'll taste them all next
I can
year.
tell you anything because I don't sell the stuff.
He's
Sure, I'll be happy to get you that.
He's willing to make every promise to remain unfulfilled.
No, this is great. I mean, I'm just sitting here comparing the 4-year to the 10-year to the 24-year, and that's just a cool experience.
And all at
to be
100
able to do
proof.
that.
What a great! I mean, especially
Yeah.
all back home. You know, you're having your friends over. Grab some bottle and bonds. Taste them together.
Yeah.
Different ages, same proofs. different whiskeys, same proofs, all bottle and bond, all from us. It doesn't have to be all of ours. Bottle and bond is an amazing category. It's an amazing piece of history with the first consumer protection legislation. It's the Eagle Scout, it's the Green Beret, it's the Navy SEAL. I mean, that on top of it. But, and now, we got our Sacred Bond brandy coming out that's here in New York in the on-premise. You'll see a lot of places making cocktails with it and that. It's not off-premise yet. But, brandies used to be a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
Huge deal. And now, not so much anymore, but brandy's really coming back in a fury. So, but thank you for letting me talk about Heaven Hill and what we do.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting
so
me
much
talk
for coming.
about Bottle and Bond. And thanks for having me on a snowy day and
Absolutely.
warming our insides.
Anything you want to tell the people about how they can find you, reach you, etc.?
I'm not available for tastings in your homes, but I wish I could do everybody's. But yeah, my website is Whiskey Prof, like Whiskey Professor, Whiskey Prof. That's whiskey with an E, WISKEYPROF.com. And there's a lot of great information on Bottle and Bond and different things. Also, who are these people whose names are on the labels? That's all on there. A little biography on them. And if you want true transparency of a major distillery that's doing unbelievable things, heavenhilldistillery.com, all one word, heavenhilldistillery.com. All of our recipes, all of the different dimensions of our warehouses and stills is on there. If you've been asking for full disclosure for a long time, and we're giving it to you. And if there's something on there, if we don't have something that you want, please email them and tell them, and we'll put them on there.
So that's Bernie Lubbers. You can find him on social media. You can find him on Whiskey
I'm on
Prof.
Facebook, I'm on Twitter, all at Bernie Lubbers, and then whiskeyprof.com.
Thanks
All right.
again, Bernie. This was
Thanks
great.
again.
My
Cheers.
pleasure. Cheers.
All right.
Stay bonded.
Yeah.